Welcome to the Plants live stream, ongoing animation of the GoldZilla walk cycle process. So today, as you see here, I got GoldZilla's pieces all kind of separated and um, ready to go. And what it's going to do, like what this will do, let's see. What this will do for us is separating the arms and the legs and the torso and everything else. That's going to allow you to know, okay, I'm going to move and have a placement for the foot. I'm going to have a placement for the lower leg. I have a placement for the upper leg. The body, it's a pretty distinct body. You got a placement for that. And then, of course, you're going to have a placement for the arm. And the head, we can kind of move it just as one right now. Let's see, yeah. So mostly, because we're going to do a walk, we're mostly going to be using like the foot, the lower leg, the upper leg, and the body. And really everything else just kind of follows. Like the head's going to follow, the arms will follow. Like generally, if you're going to animate something and go from here to there, you're going to, your shoulder right here. Let's just say let's say this is your shoulder. Just like a location node, right? That's your shoulder piece. So you want to keep it, in relation to where he is. Put the shoulder right there. Make sure the shoulder follows that point right there. So that'll kind of be, I wouldn't say the last thing, but that'll be, that will follow the body motion. So if we kind of review this like what we did last time, let me see if I can pull up the GIF. So walking through this real quick, notice that, okay, we go down. This is an old copy, but notice it's like you're using you're lifting off the ground. You're lifting off the ground at a point, right? You have a contact point. This is your contact phase. That's like, this is your contact state. And then you've shifted the weight to be right here. Yeah, it's kind of a funny leg, but it's pretty much centered, right? You've shifted it. So like, he's kind of like, he's holding his leg. He's holding his own weight up right now. And then now he's pressed off the ground. So kind of review those three again. Colliding to the ground, balancing the weight, and then lifting off. And I think we have another copy, an older copy. Cycle GIF. There we go. See if we can analyze this one real quick. There are the dust spots we got. So he was like anticipated and then contacting, and that's the full contact. And then he's releasing, and then he's flying, and then still flying, and then he shifted his whole weight like forward. So now his like feet are at the front. His feet are kind of like at the cockpit of the front of the plane sort of deal. His feet are controlling the direction, and they are leading the direction down. He's moving his leg, but really his lower body is leading the direction down. And he's about to land, anticipating land, just hitting. That would probably hurt if you landed like that, because you don't have any force. If you've seen like Olympic divers or whatever, or flip, whatever those people that do those flips, they jump and they land. And when they land, they got to do it real gracefully, because if you land the wrong way, like flat on your feet, it's gonna mess some stuff up. So finally, he collides. He hits the ground, and he's doing a little bit of squash where it goes down a little bit, and then he catches his weight, comes back up, and then slowly catching the weight, and then come back down to normal. So that right there is his normal. That's his normal state right there. Looks like he's hitting the rock. Yeah, he is. We could also adjust the position of the rock, if we want this to be truly, aligned with the physics of what it needs to be. Or we could also make a collision effect. So like where, he comes in, yeah, his tail is like behind the rock, or if it's impacting, if it's colliding with the rock, we could animate it to where the tail kind of like collides with it, and then move the tail up accordingly. Those different things that you could do with that, because the rest of the main focus is the front of the body doing the correct landing so that he can go on to the next action. But when you have that, there's other things going on, right? There's other, like, I wouldn't say side effects, but related activities that come with that. Like the dust comes out, the tail collides with a rock. All sorts of stuff could happen when you do a landing, or when you do any kind of major motion like that. So let's see what we can do to get him in the area that he needs to be. So this is Flash. This is the whole scene. Again, I broke apart all the pieces. Let me find. Here we go. Here's my timeline. And in the timeline, you got layers. And in the layers, you've got really kind of like a bunch of different things. You got the sky, right? That's just one graphic. Here. The sky, that's just a photo. The sun, just a circle. Props, there's really nothing there on the props. Land is just a rectangle. Shadow, the shadow was there earlier. That might be useful now, and it might not. I'll leave it out for now. Now we go to the character layer, and that's pretty much everything. And the jaw was on its own layer, and I think it's only because from the previous production, let me move it. The previous production, we wanted that jaw to move up and down. Let's see, we got the hinge. Save it. Get that hinge right there, because that hinge, that's your jaw hinge. That's his jaw hinge. And so now if we rotate it, then it will look just like that. Cool. And you'll want to use like hinges, that kind of stuff. And you'll want to use like hinges, that kind of stuff, for the same, for all your limbs and stuff. The arm would be rotating on that same hinge. There's a lot more I could do to the arm and really the whole body to make it more, to give it more contrast between the body parts, between the stomach and the arm. But we'll just have to kind of work with it as it is for now. And the head, that's the upper head. There we go. Okay, so they're all on the same layer, except for the arm. And where's the arm? Arms are here. Cool. Okay, let's get these legs lined up, and we will begin walking. so this is I wouldn't say this is an old school style of animation drawings, but this is really like I wouldn't say either like Hanna-Barbera, but Hanna-Barbera it's like Yogi Bear, old cartoons from like the 60s, the Flintstones. And if he was more anatomical, then he would look like that, which is kind of makes you run into that same noise outside, that same Sonic the Hedgehog problem where it doesn't look natural and it needs to be less human-like and more animal-like. Where the original Sonic the Hedgehog, the Paramount movie production version, the original release or the original draft that they had of him was his legs were super long. It just looked, and his teeth looked like human teeth, and it's just really, man, it's just scary when they do that. So you try to take an animal, a non-human creature character, and you try to make him anatomical like a human, you're going to run into some problems because I mean there's this you're going against the natural design of life. So it's so I'm doing this as a sample right here just to show that, yeah, if you design it like a regular walk cycle, you could set it up like that. But I think we have to go one step further and give him that bird effect. And by that, I mean the bird effect is where, it's that dino bird relation, that dino bird angled feet or legs. But he still has shoes, of course. Okay, so now his regular stance is sort of a squat. And I think we'll just do the regular walk cycle just as a squat. Okay, nice. All right, so I'm going to begin with the contacting with the left foot. So if he's contacting with the left foot, his right leg and foot are going to be, we get that pivot, right? The right leg and the right foot are going to be back like this. Okay, this is going to be a very hilarious walk because you can already see it right now that he's going to run into some, because it's that sort of bird pose foot thing. He's going to run into some kind of position issues, or not issues, but just some funny business with the positioning. If you look at this, if you look at it like it's a circle, like this sort of radius right here, you ask, all right, how does the actual hinge of the leg move? And so it's going to be moving along that. I can make this thing a little thicker or whatever, but it's going to be moving along this path, right? When you move your leg or when you move your arm, let's say you lift your arm up, it moves along that path right there, up to down and up to down, right? For the most part. Same thing with the leg. So it's going to be moving along a path where it could be colliding with the ground if you have that surface area. So a little bit of it is going to have some drag to it on the big floppy clown shoes, but that's cool. That's cool for now, and we can modify it as we go. And also, I'm going to move the rock out of the way. Shrubs, rock. Okay. All right. So I have that keyframe. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to insert a keyframe. F5. Okay. So the first keyframe is the first keyframe. And really, let me get that pivot point where I want it. Pivoting right here. I'm going to do the second extreme frame to where it is. The right foot is replacing the location of the left foot. And then that means the left foot is now in the location where the right foot's at. So this is a separate layer for the left foot because there's a lot of funny selection business going on with that. With that left foot, Adobe is selecting too much. Like we have to simplify it to where it will not select everything, which it sometimes will do if those parameters are in a funny place. All right, I can put it back. So we have our leg, we have our hinge. Yeah, that hinge doesn't work on here, but that's fine. Because this one, we have more rocks for some reason. Okay. Nice. Big floppy feet will save the day. Okay. And we crashed. Nice. But good thing I have saved it. And I think it crashed because I created a keyframe. Yeah, that's why the layers are really, really helpful. Locking, unlocking layers, because you want to hone in really on certain elements, and you want to select some things, and you don't want to select other things at certain times. And then you want to toggle between that, and then select something else and not select something else. And when they're all on one layer, it can get really, really, really tough to keep track of that. All right. So I've moved the position of the body, and I want this entire thing to go that far. Let's start up. Let's see this. How's this going to look if we do? Okay, we said originally left foot front, and then right foot, and then we're going to go about maybe 10 frames between the first one and the second one. Here's the second one, and here's the second one, and here's the first one. So notice this is on the left. This is the left foot right here. That's the right foot. The final frame will be, this is the left foot back here, and this is the right foot. So we're going to do a lot between here and here. Now let me get a few frames created here. Add a few in there. Okay, I'm going to add these are called key, like primary keyframes. I'm going to add the second of the primary three. Right, this is the first of the primary three. That's the second of the primary three. And that location would be right about here. So let's see what we can do with rotation first. See, there's that funny impact zone because he could be colliding with the ground right there, but I'm going to make it really interesting. His foot kind of just flops between, you have the collision and then you have the final flop right there. Let's see how this will work. And then that passing state, the passing state of the left foot, left leg, We'll bring it in. Now he still has to have his foot. He still has to have some weight. Which foot will the weight be on? Okay. Now let me fix that final flop. We get that pivot right there. And the left one will be, it's still carrying it. The left one, it's still carrying the weight, but the left it's in that transition mode where, and then when you break it down even more, you would have probably 3 primary bones for the foot. You would have the heel and maybe the toes. That will definitely the toes. But the toes could be all one bone or one object. They could be, or they could be all 5 toes or 3 toes or whatever it's got. But again, in this case, this is the most general of pieces. So there's that, there's that, there's that. So we see that, put that here. We can see that, all right, he starts the weight right here. Let me get the shadow tool. That's a very rectangular shadow, but we're just going to use that as a reference. So his weight is actually his weight is actually right. I would argue, I'm not a physical therapist, but I would argue the weight is on the heel mostly. When you are moving from one leg to the next, the weight is on the heel right there. The following one, all right, this is the left leg. The following one, the weight is now here. So 6, okay. Notice, okay. Left leg, weight is still there. We could probably move that foot down. Okay, so you see it's the weight is much further back on that heel. The weight is here, but then he will shift. He will definitely shift it to the toes. So maybe my first claim is not correct. Because this first one, he's got it on the heel. This mid one, if the heel is in the front, come on, there we go. It should be right here on the toes. And that means if the weight on that following frame is on the toes, that means the toes should be at that location. Now it looks like he's slipping on a bar of soap or something, right? So keep it there. Needs to come forward just a bit. back. Okay, so following this one, let's see, would be the weight is definitely on the toes on this one. And he's lifting off. And then out here it's in the air. And it actually just depended on, like looking at the size of him, looks like he's going to be a lot further out because his legs got to go a lot farther forward. So let me take out this shadow piece. Right foot turn. That's probably what makes this more challenging is just the size of the legs because they're very unconventional. That's the most extreme on the left. This is the middle one. And since that's the middle one, that's when it starts to turn. And really, I think the biggest thing that's lacking here is the vertical space between the feet and the hips area. There's not, we don't really have the vertical space that we would really need to do a full, more accurate, graduation of motions between all the limbs. But he is a walking dinosaur with sneakers, so that changes things a bit. There's some exceptions there. Let's see if it's going down a little bit. Maybe we should bring it up. So you see what I mean by the dragging? There's the dragging of the giant clown shoe, but we can sort of fix that by having a mid frame, or not a mid frame, just a following frame to that, where it sort of pops its way back over. See, like pointing that way, pointing down to the left and then pointing to the right, just all of a sudden. So yeah, in this case, you would do in-betweens. You would do in between here, one more, one more, one, two, three more, and then it would just kind of, animate between here and here. And maybe on this one we can bring it back, facing the back more, so there's more of that. Almost as if he were kicking the ball, right? I bet if we move it just a bit more there. All right, nice. We're not terrible. So you see that he's got still quite a way to go from here all the way out to there, but it's on his way. He's definitely on his way. Any questions so far? Thoughts? Clarity needed on any of this? Let's see. From here, here's the shadow reference piece. Oops. Okay. There's the shadow. Why is there a rock here? I bet you that rock is still in there. No, some weird stick. That was the original shadow, actually. Yeah, it should be up just a bit more. Okay. I'm at 50 frames per second. Let me slow this down to about 30 frames a second. And I'm going to play it so we can kind of review it. It's a very fast skip. I feel like there's one that sort of drags. Oh no, not that. So it's going to be that left foot that's looking very static, right? This should probably be his highest point. Okay, so we're going to bring him down. He's reached that sort of higher point. Now the left leg is going to start really going back. Lock it. Lock the other two. That shadow. And this one should be a little longer. Okay, Loki, did you always use the Adobe for animation, or was there another thing before? I always have used Adobe Animation. When it first came out, it was called Adobe Flash, and it was owned by a company called Macromedia. So I've really I've used other animation like uh, Premiere, not well, Premiere's editing. After Effects. I've used After Effects and other 3D programs, but I think this Adobe Animation, I use it because I'm most familiar with it, but I am curious as to what other softwares are out there that can do these similar functions. I think Character Toon Boom or something like that was one of them that I've heard about. But yeah, I've always used Adobe Animate, and really all you need for things like this, you just need layers, you need keyframes, and a little bit of paint stuff. Not even too advanced paint objects. You just need to be able to, bring your objects in, save them, save like the arms, legs, body, background, and stuff, and then you can get going on this thing. It does other stuff, but for purposes of like character animation, I'm actually considering going to like Toon Boom or some other application that might be um, simpler if this is the majority of what I would use it for. Okay, so we did one full leap or pounce, I guess is the most he can do with given his proportion, given his anatomy of squatted to long legs and big floppy shoes. Doing a jump is easy for him. Doing a pounce is more practical, more of a reasonable expectation for him to sort of leap as he walks. That's his stride, rather than a full upright standing human anatomical walk cycle. Uh, but as you saw earlier, the beginning of the video, he was that sample that I did where his legs were real long. We could have done that too, but it would have given a very scary look to him. So this has been an interesting test just to see, what can we get out of a character like this to make him walk that way, right? Because he does sort of do a bit of a leap. Let me spread out these keyframes so that we can run this thing at a at a um, at a video sample. 2. So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking each of these keyframes, taking each of the keyframes and each of these keys and adding extra frames, as you can see over here, to where it's like 3 frames per key. It's as if you had a piece of paper and it were on screen just a little longer. Okay, so I got all of these ready. Get my background elements in there. Okay, save it. Now let's test out, see how it looks. And I will give it some extra space here. There we go. All right. It's not necessarily a run, and it's not necessarily a walk. It's just a big step, stride, big shoes, thick body head, and strong legs, I think. Okay, let me see what I can do to improve it. One trick sometimes animators might do, maybe most specifically computer animators, is to repeat the frames. So like now we're at right leg and right foot front. The first one was left leg and left foot front. We've done that transition between right. So, and that could use some improvement right there. The relation between these frames I don't like, and so what we could do is let's see if I can take this, copy it, paste it over, copy it, paste it over, copy it, paste it over. Cool. Now, pasted it, move it. That's right. That's right leg front. This one is also right leg front. I think what I'm looking for is to repeat to where the left leg begins to. I don't think that's the frame that I wanted. Let's see. Because what I want to do is have this left leg gradually come back to where the left leg is in the front, and the right leg gradually go back to where the right leg is in the back, just like right here. So right there, just like right there. So we're going from here. Let me show you. We're going from here to here. And different parts of it. And it's going to make up different parts. Right. And we're going from that to that. It's almost as if you had, let's say you put your arms, let's say your right arm were in the front and your left arm were in the back. You're doing like a karate chop or something. And then you have one image where your right arm is in the front, and then you do the next image where your right arm is in the back. And to actually animate that, to give that motion and life, you have to do several images in between the right arm going from front to back. Okay, so that's the extreme one. Now let's do a middle piece. Yeah, let's give it one more extra frame there. I think this Adobe application can be, I guess, finicky. It's changed a lot since I started using it many years ago, where it's so much. I feel like it's much more processor intensive. I don't know. It seems to crash easier. It seems to, or maybe I just overload it more. I don't know. It seems to, the whole interface just seems to be much harder to move stuff around. But that's just Adobe in general. But it's I don't know. I say that as like it's not as responsive or not as quickly responsive as it used to be. Okay, so our principle is that the right foot is in the front, and now the final one here is the right foot is in the back. And then when we started, the right foot was in the back, and the left leg was in front. So what we did is in between, down here, down here, down here, down here, and then up, and then jump. Okay. So now we're doing that. We're switching sides, and we're starting the same cycle over, except opposite legs. So the next one, we should move, wait. We could move the entire body, right? And then this one the entire body would also move further out. Let's see. Running out of space here. Cool. So remember your position, your weight, your weight. It's on the heel, then it's going to be on the toe, right? We move your weight from your heel to your weight on the toe. Now the weight is on the toe. You're about to lift off, and wow, he's way off. But that's what's real helpful about like measurement metrics like this. Is a little shadow piece. Is you can say, all right, my toe was about to be. I'm lifting off with my toe, and now here we go. Now it's more accurate. Versus wait, it was shifted off that way or shifted off that way. When you use shadows can show that when you use any sort of ruler, any sort of device to give you references of location, find the reference of the location of where were you in the previous frame and where are you in the current frame, or where are you now and where will you be in the following frame, right? So you see that does it, and there would have to be several frame between there and there, right? So then that, and then the final one would be clearly further down off the stage, right? Let's see how that looks so far. Very fast. So that means we gotta maybe add a few more frames in there, in between there. Let's see, I would say 1, 2, 3. Adding 3 more just so we can give it some 3 more per frame. 3 more keyframes per image, basically. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Get the background updated. All right, let's go. Loki's saying, I am learning new tricks. All right, cool. So you notice that, and you can see that contrast between all of the frames kind of smoothly working together here, and then these 1, 2, 3 big frames that, you know, they're incomplete, but you see where it's going. You see the direction that he's actually headed, that his whole body and animation is headed towards. Let me make this a little longer. 1, 2, making this a little longer so we can really kind of analyze that that whole composition in process. If you notice, if you think about sometimes when you watch videos, and if the video stops, and maybe like there's a glitch in the feed or something, you might see somebody moving, and then suddenly they're moved from one to the next to the next. The feed or the video is something's wrong with it, because it's, or what you're seeing is you're noticing, hey, I'm not seeing every single frame in between the person being at this location and that location. And so the feed is skipping frames. It's skipping frames of that video footage. So that's similar to what we have here. We are missing frames, which we will, you know, produce after this. We're missing a lot of frames, but again, it gives us the direction as to where we're, you know, where the major keyframes are going to be located. The primary keys are going to be, he establishes the weight on the ground, he's up, and then he's gone off the screen. Alrighty, let's see what we can do with him here. Clean all this junk up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put in, I wonder, from here to here. So that means it's got to be, like, let's say we've got horizontal, totally vertical. So let's like 180, 90. So let's do a 45 right there in between. 180, 90. Yep, there's that 90. 180, 90, 180, 90. Right. Like he's dancing. And then we'll put that right there. Uh, 45 degrees. Well, depending on where you're measuring that, I think it's technically 30. Or 130, shall I say. All right, get those legs. Those incorrect, anatomically, strangely positioned legs. But at least we're not breaking his knees, meaning like we're not going forward where we would otherwise impossibly not be able to go forward. Okay. So the major thing that I have here is the foot. The foot location seems good. It's just the right foot. Yeah, that's the third. That's the 190. So we want to be before the 190. It's like a ballerina dinosaur over here. It is very ballerina-esque, whatever. Okay, now we can move the left foot and leg forward. Like he's kicking. Pow, pow, kick. But I'm seeing something a little off. Is that yeah? There's a lot of space between this resting. Like I'm paying attention to the hip bone right here. There's a lot of space between here and here. Okay, so we could there could be keyframes added between there and there, but that's still kind of a consistent path, right? But then when you get to here, you go to the next one, that's going too high up. Again, we're working with the bent knee, funny style of bent knees or bent legs because of the lizard design. But I think it needs to be maybe lowered, and maybe that lower leg needs to be pressed in just a bit. Squat squatting in just a little bit. And then we would move the entire rest of the body forward so that we can keep that hip, or maybe not, keep that hip on alignment. Or if not squatting, then stretching out. So that way, if that leg is stretching out, that way the hip, has to line up right there with the other hip or with the other leg. Let's see. I'm going to give this a test. Okay, try it. Looks like looks like the sun glitches a little bit there. He has a lot of toe strength. He's really putting a lot of weight on those toes. I guess you have to have big shoes for strong toes. And I'm seeing a little bit of slide at the early couple of frames right over here. Where it is. So right about here, there's a little bit of a slide. Trying to pinpoint this. Somewhere over here. You know what I think this needs to do is it needs more time on this, on one of these frames. One or two of these frames need a little more time so that it doesn't look like one of the issues you might have in animations if it doesn't look right is it looks like it might start sliding around. And the reason an animation might look like it's sliding, like there's no gravity, or if it's just sliding, is because there's not the right amount of time on the right frames. I've seen some animations where, like, let's say somebody's going to swing a baseball bat or something, and or they're walking and they're going to open a door, right? They're going to use all of their arms and legs, and everything looks very just done, right? And that whole process, to walk toward a door, to put your arm out, to put your weight on one of your legs, and then move your spine, that whole process is actually pretty complex. And you have to find which of my legs or which part of my body am I going to put the weight on when I start going into action and opening the door. And that helps to determine how much time, how many frames or how much time is on that shot, on the shot of the hand on the doorknob, the shot of the, standing in front of the door, the shot of the shoulders moving. How much time do you put on each of those shots? Because it really should not be the time should not be the same. So what we're seeing here is all the time. This is all, if you can look at like little squares, they're all equally the same. So I'm going to test that out, see what I can do to improve that. Let's see. Okay, we got we got weight. We're moving the shadow around. Let's see where's shadow. Got weight hit. That's a small movement, but not bad. Okay, I see one thing that needs to be fixed. Move it up just a little bit. Okay, yeah, this one he's going very far down. And this is the big problem right here because he's not even moving, barely. Well, he's not, there's no momentum right here. Especially not there. Well, maybe. Okay, there we go. Okay, so about timing, I want to give this and this a little more time. So ranting about what I was saying on extra time, give these two frames, make them a little bit longer. Okay, and this one, just one extra frame. Let me see how that looks now. And hopefully it's noticeable. Hopefully the change is noticeable. Or maybe I can reduce the number of frames. Make one thing longer and another thing shorter, basically. And actually, 30 frames, 60 frames. Let me go back to, I'm getting to 45 frames, the frame rate. Yeah, that's not going to help. I think this is too long. Okay, a little better. That's the one that was originally long enough. Let's see, insert frames. Remove. There we go. And now let me go back to my lower frame rate, 35. You can see it better for 35. Go back to 30. This impact state, this impact frame right here, this needs to be definitely longer. And there's more that could be done to make that longer. But let's just stick with what we know that we're doing. Let's see, impact. Yeah, I think that I'll add, because this is the one that we really just kind of just now started, right? Skating on the sand. Okay, I think his funny anatomy is starting to really take form now because I can see how difficult it is for him to walk with those giant shoes. And the theory of dinosaurs is that they would stomp, but their legs did it in a different fashion than a human walk. And so he's not following either laws of anatomy, anatomical motion. He's doing his own type of walk. Or at least he's getting places. Okay. I'm still seeing a little bit of floating, a little bit of floating going on. This needs to be shorter, that frame. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is do something to improve the whole composition where when you see this thing moving, most of what you see obviously is the head and the shoes. And, the shoes take up so much energy. Um, and it's tough to really it's not that it's hard to understand what it is that you're looking at, but it's hard to really pay attention to the things that really could make a big difference. And so, midway through that, between the head and the shoes, you've got the arm and the torso and the spikes in the tail. So what I'm going to do here is just make a basic outline of the arm. So a little more contrast of it. That way you notice, okay, there's the top, middle, bottom area, and this arm is your midpoint. And now you can see, hopefully it doesn't crash. like it likes to do. Now, hopefully you can not necessarily pay attention to the arm, but notice that, hey, there's a different look to it. Okay, Loki, you're saying one of the harder things for me when I was animating is the timing. Yeah, timing is the it's I think it's the most work because it's kind of subjective. And I'd say timing is about what do you want to convey. You could have the same action, the same motions, same positions of things and size and proportion, but if it's done at a different speed or really just depending on the speed that it is, conveys a certain emotion, conveys a certain mood of your whole scene. So timing is everything. Okay, let's test this thing. So now you got the arm in the middle. Okay. And so what it's supposed to do really is just so like, hey, there's a little bit more weight to him. Um, he's not just a head and a couple of big chunky feet. He's actually got an arm and a midpoint, mid area. Oh, I know what this did. I know what's going on here. The issue is that arm only stayed on the keyframe. So here's what I might have to do. It's not that many frames. So you notice that changes between this one and that one. I might have to just paste the arm on every single frame. Again, it's not that many, just as long as it's consistent. But this could give me an opportunity to move the arm around if I wanted to, which I probably should. And I think we will close it out after this arm piece. So moving the arm down a little bit. And maybe making a layer of its own for the arm. So that would mean every subsequent keyframe has to be removed, or the arm has to be removed from the following frames. Do a small rotation here. Let's test this out. It's a quick. It's sort of a fast move on the arms. I think because it's so few frames, it should not be that drastic of a positioning for him. So I'm going to bring that down a little bit. Shouldn't go. It should not go that far back. Let's see this. There we go. He just pushes his upper arm strength upward as that passing frame pushes the rest of his body up. So what that's designed to do is show that when he's moving his weight, primarily at this point, he's also moving his arm. He's moving another part of his body at the same time, at the same location. Alrighty. Well, that gets us definitely gets us started. Was it an hour of just moving, kind of just moving forward, not necessarily doing any magical movements, but just kind of testing out the head possibilities. Chomp, 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 chomp. Let me see if I can add sort of a little blink here or something. Maybe he's catching a flying bug or something with his teeth. Alrighty, I will close out some of these last frames. Just cut all these. Make it shorter. And say, I think the one last thing I want to try, I still see a lot of floating. I still see a lot of floating right here. You probably see that it doesn't look like something's not syncing up. It might be that frame altogether. I'm gonna go ahead and take that frame out. I'm just gonna cut that whole thing. Okay. Let me take out the shadow layer. Okay, I think he's a little healthier now. This can be longer right here. Stomp, 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 stomp. So he does 3 stomps. Does a stomp, stomp, stomp. Let me put those in just for resemblance or symbology. There definitely could be more keyframes right there. Okay, stomp. Okay, stomp. No, stomp. Stomp. And stomp. Stomp right here. And then that right there's the stomp. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Yeah, it's very fast. Nope, and it looks like it may have crashed. Who knows? The stomps are still there. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Alrighty, well, I think we made a little progress on understanding, when you set up a character, he's either going to be animal or he's going to be human. But if it's a fictitious thing and there's really no scientific reference to go by to say, all right, you got your primary keyframe, you got your secondary. There's really no um, examples of how to make something walk. You then come into a territory of like, this is new. Do the legs go full spread out, or are the legs locked? Like, is the knee locked? Are the legs bending all the way? And you got all these questions and some challenges of like, how do you really get it to showcase, to demonstrate, to visually demonstrate that it is walking? And then you got to stay on your principles of, your weight position, your position on the ground, your weight distribution, which which part of the body is the weight going to, and each of those frames working together. And then when you get into timing, you got things like, what does it convey? This is a really simple emotion he's conveying. He's just running along, chomping the air. But sometimes timing can really shape the 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 visual, the emotional message that the animation that you're doing, that your character is going to be doing, all with the timing, the faster, the slower, all that stuff. All right. Well, thanks for joining today. Getting our lizard Zilla starting to walk, and maybe next week we can do some less basic stuff and more custom stuff. Maybe like tricks he can do with gold bars or something. All right. Thanks again, everybody. Have a good day. Good night. I'll see you guys around.